This is for
Adjusted data must be grammatical.
yep.
Hold up.
That
Yeah,
I wasn't sure how.
I was confused
exactly.
about that.
Yeah.
So for straw polls, I don't believe you need to record the results of it, simply because it's not an official vote. But it can just be marked as such, typically in favor of option A versus option B. So you would say, option A votes with like 5, option B votes with 3, something along those lines.
I'll do that.
I encourage you guys to make sure you look at the minutes that way you just catch any mistakes, especially since we're in budget season. These are going to be the documents that we send out to clubs when they say, why did you make this decision or why did you do that? We'll be directing them back to these minutes.
Okay. That's it.
That being said, is there a motion regarding the October 29th minutes?
Move to approve the October 29th meeting minutes.
Second. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the motion is passed with general consent. Is there a motion regarding the November 1st meeting minutes?
Move to approve November 1st meeting minutes.
Second. All right, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the motion is passed with general consent. And up next on our agenda is going to be Ethics Bowl. I yield the floor to Ms. Negro for Ethics Bowl.
Hi, so I spoke a little at the last meeting, and for those of you who weren't there, Ethics Bowl is a debate club that's centered around ethical issues, and we function primarily around traveling. It's an integral part of what we do. We can't do what we do if we don't travel. And we offer an experience that few other clubs on campus offer, with coaches that are just incredible and students that are so dedicated to what we do. And so we were hoping to reopen the topic of our funding for next semester, which we may not be able to get, but we were hoping to be able to relook at that. And also I think me, my treasurer, and my advisor all sent forwarded emails to you guys, so I think you should have those.
2 emails were received in the finance board shared box. If you guys want to go ahead and open to take a look, they should be starred. Personal emails. Disaster. Yeah.
After the
After dinner. Up 10. Yeah.
You want all 3 of them?
You should open up one to see fit. Everyone get a chance to look over those emails right now. Most of them indicate in terms of collaboration for each project and thanks for submitting recommendations and stuff like that.
So you want me to clarify what ribbon monkey works?
Yeah.
As I promised, I met with Candace. Yes, we met with Candace yesterday to talk about if it was a Survey Monkey thing or what happened. So there was none of these emails say that it was submitted. The recommendation just says that your advisor had finished their section, but you have to go back in and submit the budget. So when your advisor can't submit the budget for you, if that makes sense, like they can upload their piece, but you have to go back in and submit after it.
I don't remember getting an email about that, but if we go back in and like we were working with the system after.
There would have been an email submission. So Candace went in just to see like what emails were sent to your treasurer because we have those records, and there was never a submission email sent to your treasurer for Ethics Bowl. So your treasurer is also treasurer for another organization. So they had submitted for not the board matters, but for another organization where they received the confirmation emails. So they knew what the confirmation email looked like because they're the same for any request, regardless if it's on campus, off campus, what it's for. So somewhere along the it can be all completed on your end, but you have to hit the submit, like to go back in and submit it, if that makes sense. So on the SurveyMonkey side, that's what it looks like. So,
Okay.
just so everyone has that information.
Are there any questions for organization? Justin, since you put this item on the agenda, how would you like to proceed?
Motion.
Move to enter discussion.
Second.
All right, we're now in discussion.
Any of the FYAs, your opinions? No? Anyone?
So I know that an issue again discussed last time was on whether it was an issue on SurveyMonkey or not. Personally, as much as I'd like to continue to support the org, if the treasurer didn't know what a submit screen looks like, but didn't get that for this one, that kind of indicates to me they might have had more of an opportunity to do so. Tori, I understand that the language in the email was reworded to indicate that it's like a mark on each thing to say it's like not submitted yet.
Yeah, so can you bring up the recommendation email, please?
I think that was the last thing that we had was the prize recommendation.
Yeah, so this just, can you keep scrolling? Yeah, so this just states that the recommendation was complete. So the recommendation means, that the advisor filled out their recommendation to allow you to sign off on it, if that makes sense. But that doesn't mean that everything is submitted. So it just means that part of your application is completed, but not fully submitted. So Candace added to this specific email, like a note, you still have to go in and submit your budget request, So it's not as like we just went in and changed that yesterday to state that also.
So have you spoken with your treasurer at all since time?
Yeah, Jacob and I talk pretty regularly. I don't think that any of us realized there was an issue until afterwards. Like I remember that I looked at it the next day, which is when I asked you guys what was going on, just because I noticed that there was something off the next day. But certainly that night I think we all thought we were fine because we had all the pieces in and we had gone back in through the website and we were under the impression that everything was fine until the next morning. I don't think I must have just slipped his inbox or something. I think he must have assumed that he had gotten the email and just hadn't gotten the actual official email because each of us had a couple like this.
Okay, because I thought I saw his name on the list, so
Yeah, so he's a treasurer for a different organization also.
okay.
So he got an email.
He probably had a lot of, I think from what I understand from him is he had a lot of emails in his inbox about these processes, and I think these specific applications must have just gotten jumbled up in the mix.
Okay.
Any other discussion points?
I have a question. Okay, so were there any decisions made previously towards how many of you guys are bringing towards clubs who filled out everything, had their advisors from the department, just got to go back and submit it?
So the original vote was against letting them
Okay.
into the regular pot. But then the council came to us with this information and the board voted to at least reconsider or look at the matter to see if it might have been a SurveyMonkey issue. Because if it was an issue that's out of the club's control, then we don't really want to penalize them for that.
Elsie,
Elsie, go ahead.
I just wanted to I was one of the people who voted to reconsider last Friday simply because I did want to just make sure that it was not an issue on our part, but with all the information that we've learned today, I'd be comfortable sticking with the decision that we made prior at our board when we voted that unfortunately we would have to stick with records that we have and only consider clubs who had submitted applications, just to be fair.
Justin?
So I remember, I think it was briefly mentioned that Sahas may be a means for them. Is that still applicable to this situation, or?
That would be how the board votes to determine that. One second, please.
discussion, please? Scott and then Zane.
I think we have to stick with the hard deadline originally set.
The 1,000 cups have full cups.
Can you say that again, Scott? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
I think we have to stick with the hard deadline that we originally set.
Zane?
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna, I think kind of what I mean last time with, the context of the issue, so I think that having everything submitted, I think, I'm not really convinced that the last step of submitting it, like, I know obviously that's like the final step you need to do so we can actually see it, but we can also see that everything was submitted, and I think that like that expo was like basically the only club in the situation, because again, there was off-campus events that were all in progress, but like they were either missing something and, or they're not like fully complete, they're just not without the submission of them, so I mean, that's kind of where I stand with the issue.
Michael, I know you had some thoughts on it prior. Did you want to chime in?
Honestly, I'm really torn on the situation. Personally speaking, I, especially starting to look at the second semester budgets, I feel that we have to have a really hard line on situations like this. I feel like there should be little leniency. However, with that being said, this was an issue that did occur during the during the fall semester, and there were clubs that I did advocate for to try to encourage some leniency for. So, in the interest of trying to pull money out of the pot that typically is already pretty much been spent, I can't say I agree to do that. However, I would be interested in hearing Liam's proposal or entertaining Liam's proposal about, if anything, looking at Sahas.
So in terms of that, it'd be similar to maybe the first round club, we could theoretically open that up again. It'd be the fall, I'd speak more on that later. I just need to officially turn over the chair to Justin, probably go pick up your reporters. I'll be back in approximately 10 minutes.
Zane, then Scott, then Ryan, and what's that? Zane, Scott, Ryan, and Scott.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to reiterate what kind of was said last Friday in terms of, I think Tori kind of touched on it in terms of like, having everything great in the situation. Obviously, I know it doesn't necessarily mean like giving funding or something like that, but I think we do have to kind of step back and realize that we have already had one submission period, but that was prior to us having like established treasure trainings with the new content, because previously it was myself and the previous treasurer like doing it, so it wasn't a fully like integrated system. And I also think with this this is like the first real submission, and again it is the first time that like student orgs are budgeting, things like that. I know other points have been brought up where like, you know, majority of people got it right, and obviously they should be considered for funding because they did the process correctly and everything like that, but I do think that in certain situations we should look at the context of the things in terms of the submission issue, but also I think just I think what we're doing in terms of considering it I think is a good step, but I just want to kind of reiterate just making sure that everybody's looking at the situation as this is the first time that we're doing the new system with new treasure trainings with new support through liaison systems.
Scott and Ryan.
And going along with the original, while I do agree with saying that it's important to have empathy in the situation and trying to support the organization in some way, I want to make sure that we prioritize the budgets that were submitted and submitted correctly so that we can make sure that we are able to get everything done by our deadline of November 18th. I think we could visit the situation again afterwards, after everything else has been completed, but and see if we have any funds left over or whatnot. But I don't want to get distracted and try and this process that we have.
Ryan and Justin.
I'm basically just gonna second what
Zane and Scott have said, we need to keep a thin line, and it's a new system, but I think keeping a hard line is important for maintaining the timely process through the system. With that said, it's still possible for funds to be allocated to the club, so.
I mean, there's not many new points, but I want to say, like, it is a really unfortunate situation, and I appreciate that you came in for 2 meetings to come to talk to us. And if we are unable to give you funding through the system, I know, like, both Zane and Scott have been working on, like, things about, like, alternative sources of funding, and so maybe we could help. Like, I know travel expenses are a big thing, so maybe there are other ways that we can help in terms of fundraising, so you can get access to that money. And I would also be in favor of revisiting the discussion after we allocate the budget. So, like, the budgets that we have, the applications that we have, like Scott said, like, revisit it later and see what other like options we have for the organization to help support them.
That was a bad time to raise my hand, sorry. I would like to just remind you all too that you all have already voted on intellectuals, like, off-campus competition pot, and you don't have any more money in there, so just to keep that in mind, that putting it back in this system is not really an option. Sahas could be an option, but
Did you guys notify those clubs too that?
it's not for now. No, it's not for now. Topic.
No, I just was wondering because if they did already allocate it, then to go back.
Alright, are there any further discussion points? Alright, any motions to end discussion?
Move to end discussion.
Alright, all those in favor? All those opposed? So we're out of discussion. Is there a motion to reconsider ethics poll for spring 2020 funding, off-campus funding?
I'll motion to, well, I mean, I wish there was a term because I would motion to reconsider them, but using not the off-campus pot. But I don't know, we didn't really discuss that as a solution. I mean, that's the motion I would make in terms of this context. I think we should, like Troy brought up, we should, because we already allocated money for off-campus, so we should leave that to the vote that we already took on.
Alright, so say your motion again?
Motion to reconsider ethics both for funding and using funds from Sahas to apportion funds there.
Any second?
I'm not seconding, I kind of more of a, procedural things.
Oh, yeah.
Today, but my question is do we have the ability to wait to see what Sahas looks like because of the fact that, at the moment, I would echo, let's hold off on Sahas until after Sahas closes, we don't receive any more requests for things like t-shirts and stuff.
Well, I guess I was thinking the context of the Sahas fund for this spring. Isn't it already divided up?
Well, we're out of discussion. You guys want to end the discussion?
Motion to table is discussed. Motion to table is
Ethics poll.
ethics poll, yes.
Second.
Alright. All those in favor of tabling ethics poll? All those opposed? This motion passes. So, Sky's, so,
I'm saying I will walk out.
Thank you for coming in. At this point, like, we've already, like, taken the money out of the pot and allocated to the org, so you can't pull the money out of stuff we've already given or, like, are about to give, but definitely, we'll be, considering, some of us, I'm sorry.
Appreciate your comments.
Sorry.
They're very easy to say what you heard.
You got it.
quickly see Josh. If he'd like to talk.
The room can be awkward after those moments.
Yeah.
And I felt like you broke the ice instead of being, let us walk you out.
Sorry, well, I can't hear you. Matthias, empathy is too loud.
Okay,
So the next thing on our agenda is budgets for the spring 2020 semester, on-campus requests. I believe we're going over precedents for $33 per year. For events not in the spring.
You all never finished going through like cutting GBMs and stuff like that.
I thought we
And
unilaterally.
then tab is the question that you said.
Yes, but I still suggest that you go through and make sure that's what they are, because I'm human. So.
you have to make, I'm sure that it says yes.
I'm human and opt to err.
I just feel like
What I can do is tell you what the FBBRs are, what the request numbers are. Go in, look at them, because some of them in purple are fundraisers or recruitment too, and those can be more to discretion if that makes sense. So GBMs, you decided to categorically cut fundraisers and recruitment is in your statutes that you don't fund them, but there's not like a button that says, is this a fundraiser or is this a recruitment event? So, and just to clarify, when I say fundraiser, I mean like I'm raising money for my organization, not for charity. So, possibly. Not a bad idea. But in the questions thing, the next ones would be 332, 327, and 299. I don't know how much to brace those out.
Wait, so what color are we doing?
Purple.
We're still on the purple.
Was that a question or like you was starting?
No, I was telling you.
It sounded like a question.
It's like so unsure. Sorry. Okay. Wait, so this is Will, the, wait.
Yeah, women in leadership and learning.
That's
literally so
332.
terrifying.
Okay, I'll look at it.
Wait, so you should all look at separate things?
It's up to you.
I mean, since it's like, I think, yeah. So, Nikki, you want to do 332? Yeah. I can do 327. Does anyone want to do 299?
I'll do 299.
Who wants to do 329?
Wait, can you briefly like
299.
Okay, so this, so Tori won the shoe. She's on it, yeah. So she made.
I shared it. I shared the view only sheet with everyone.
She's on it. So all of these colors represent like different things that
Zoom out.
This one is
I don't-
maybe on
Or
the
scroll to the right and go up.
it's
No,
not
no,
it's
the
missing.
color code
Oh,
thing
color
is-
code, yeah.
Those
So
ones
like
are
she sort of like started to make her initial cuts.
But
So
I
we're
didn't
going
have
through
the
purple,
question
which
sheet.
is like
Okay,
things
I mean,
like
that's fine.
like that.
I
So
put
you
them
already
at the
done with
bottom,
the light
but
green.
done, you already looked at
No, but we just started with purple because we just wanted to.
Okay.
start
What
with
number is
purple.
women in
It's the
leadership
easiest
again?
one.
Huh?
What
So
number is
there's a
women
few
in
of
leadership?
them.
There's a couple of them.
That's why I was
You can look at 329. I don't think it was something that one.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at 332 and the event title, the title of the event is GBM and.
So it's all the purple ones correct?
Those are your questions.
So the purple are general body meetings, fundraisers, and recruitment events. So we're just going through again because I am here. And you also have to actually like legislatively
Make sure you
move
keep
to
track
strike.
of which number you're.
Alright, so motion to strike 229 because it's a general body meeting and for Valentine's Day. So just fine.
Wait,
299. You said 229.
299.
so it's for Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it's for Valentine's Day. It's like a general body meeting with serving food and they're just decorating for it. So motion to strike it.
Second?
Second. Oh, yeah.
No, okay. Same?
Oh, what are we doing?
Oh, yeah. So we're going over all of the purple ones still because we didn't finish those, like the general body meetings and the sun winter.
Okay. So I just motion to strike 299, which is a general body meeting for women in leadership on Valentine's Day that they're serving food for and they have supplies and
Yeah, Elsa and Justin second.
Sorry about
Alright, so all those in favor of striking 299?
Do I cover any?
Oh yeah, remember like if there are no objections, the thing that Liam taught you.
We'll do that later. Thank you for reminding me. I completely forgot. I appreciate it. All those in favor? All those opposed? Alright, this motion passes.
Well, I wasn't in the room, so I don't know.
Abstention due to lack of knowledge.
Did we go
The-
to any?
Wait, is he recording these or is it?
We all
Yes.
gone.
No, so we're going, so,
There were 2
Oh,
abstentions on that last
we only
vote.
went over.
For
yeah,
motions,
so like we went through all the ones at the
Okay,
top
yeah.
that are purple, and now we're like in the 300s. Motion to
I
strike,
think I think.
327, because it's also BPBN.
Same club?
Yep.
Alright.
Thanks so much for coming in.
So there's a motion to strike another GBM by Will. All those opposed? Seeing no objections, this motion passes. And which number was this again?
327 that was, correct?
Yes.
What number are we on?
So we're doing like,
multiple numbers.
so yeah, we're starting from like the 34 to 38. That's Will, all of Will's. And I'm saying 30. That's like not the number of the FBBR. It's like the number of the actual row. No, I'm talking about the
Okay.
Oh, you said that.
FX. Is that
How
what
are
it
we
is?
on multiple ones?
We're not,
Okay.
but we're
They're all looking at different ones and then bringing it up.
within the same. Yeah, like
Does anyone keep a track of the ones who vote to strike?
yeah, she's striking them out.
Thank you.
Wait, so did what did you?
And then I'm
Diffusion.
cutting the rows and putting at the bottom.
What? You wrote that?
Okay, so we
It
just,
says yeah. It says
Yeah.
strike it.
Move to strike, 332, Will, GBM.
Are there any objections? Scott?
Due to redundancy and that we voted to strike all purple line items last meeting,
All purple.
all GBM.
Not all the purple ones are GBMs.
Yeah.
This is just going through to make sure that like,
They're
I didn't
actually
make it, they're actually GBMs.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
That's what we did before.
But we didn't go, just to make sure they're actually clicked as GBMs in the requests.
It's not the same.
Wait, did her motion pass?
Strike, oh.
Oh, no. Scott has an objection. So let's do it again.
Move to strike 332.
Second.
Alright, any objection to striking 332? Seeing no objection, this motion passes.
Motion to strike 323 for the reasons previously mentioned.
Second.
Are there any objections to striking 323? Seeing no objection, this motion passes.
Did we do 329 yet?
Nope.
Is that a motion?
Did you look at it? Did you open the
Yeah.
And then it says general fund. Okay, yeah, then just so. Did you motion? Say move to strike.
Move to strike FBL 329.
Second.
Alright, any objections to striking FDR 329? Seeing no objections, this motion passes.
So, sorry, go on.
Passes.
Yeah.
Can we strike it or just strike it?
Wait, how come you have all of yours in the agenda? Why do you still
That
have
was
all of
323 or 329?
329.
So there's a copy of the Spring on Campus sheet, and
Oh.
there's the advisor sheet that was shared with you. Those
Okay,
are two
I
different
don't need
sheets.
advisors.
Yeah, you can be in the advisor sheet, that's what I'm actually
So
working
the
on.
advisor sheets one should be a view-only access,
Mhm.
where Tori's actively removing clubs that aren't there. The copy was one that we made last time, that we could have a full sheet of everything to work off.
You just showed it today. Three. So, wait, so did someone look at 323?
Yes, I did.
323 was.
I'll say it was down.
Can you just, where is spreadsheet of all
Let me see if I can generate a report.
Just like wasting.
Are you gonna assign us orgs, or are we just going down, like, is everyone gonna open the same org? Because the other ones aren't like GBN, so I mean,
So 146 is a GBM,
wait, oh, right,
219 is a GBM, 193 is a GBM,
okay, I'll look at 146.
and 315.
I looked at 146, it says first general body, so move to strike,
Okay.
146.
Second.
Are there any objections to striking 146? Seeing no objections, this motion passes.
I'm looking at 173.
One clarification.
Yeah.
So you are assigning people to look through certain requests to confirm that the actual request says that it is indeed a GBM.
Yes.
At which that person makes a motion to strike it.
Well, Tori's telling us which ones are GBMs are in the purple, and each one of us is like voluntarily looking over, just trying to allow which one we're taking a look at, and then motion to strike.
So the only reason they're going through the application is to confirm that it does say GBM.
Yeah.
Understood.
Some of them are fundraisers.
Fundraisers are-
Yeah, the purple is fundraisers or recruitment also.
And we did not vote to strike all of those.
So they're leaving those.
Move to strike 193 is listed as, says last general body meeting and it says yes for GBM.
Alright,
Second.
are there any objections to this motion? This motion passes, 193 is stricken.
Is there any way to like split it up?
That's what you're trying to do.
How much more do we have?
I thought that was the last one.
Well, basically like just go,
Check
so in the
288,
purple,
yeah.
the comments,
288,
say GBM, go
315.
click on it, and then, like, what if we're all looking at the same one? Probably won't.
216.
Just take that.
219.
It's not that organized.
Move to, no, not move to strike 270, double sigma, beta.
Second.
Just so people know what they're voting on, they requested $0 and it's for involvement fest, so.
Alright, are there any objections to this motion? Any objections, motion passes.
Move to strike F, what, 219, which is, a GBM from Linux users group.
Any objections? This motion passes.
That was 219.
Are some of these from the same club?
Yeah.
I think we should just go through like, if the club has like more than one in the purple, we should just go through like all of them and then strike them all at once, if they are GBMs.
Well, there's some of them are like different colors. Or, and like different reasons within the same color.
I mean, if they're the same color.
Okay.
Move to strike 216, SWE, agree, listed as a general body.
What do you?
Are you with everything you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on the budget sheet.
That's second.
Second.
Alright, did you repeat that?
Move to strike 216, deciding women engineers, Baltimore, Washington meet and greet, which is strictly for Sweden and Kurdistan, is listed as a general body meeting.
Any objections to this motion? Seeing no objections, this motion passes.
Move to strike 176 Food Allergy Awareness Club. It's a fundraiser for the organization. and they have attendance listed as 0.
Wait, did we already complete foodology awareness? Wasn't there a long discussion on it?
That was for specific food items,
Oh, this is another event. Alright. Any objections to this motion?
We're looking at GPMs as a third health.
No, we were looking at videos.
Move to enter discussion.
Second.
Alright, all those in favor of entering discussion?
You don't need to. Once 2 people agree, then you move into discussion.
Alright.
Can we figure out a more centralized way than doing exactly what we did last semester, which might cause errors? Because I feel like we can use the spreadsheet, whatnot, of the SurveyMonkey to figure out all the ones that are listed as GBMs, or that they could be postponed and gone through by leadership instead of us using meeting time to strike individual events. So I'd rather talk about categories of things that we're not going to fund rather than specific instances.
Got it.
That's what Tori did go through, and I think it's just, we're just going back through what Tori's already gone through to confirm what Tori's done.
What he said. Just to make sure that I didn't put anything on there that was a change. Because we don't have a report that states what's listed as GBM graded. I think Liam is making one right now by that base, but I'd also suggest that at this point you don't make, let's cut everything, blah, 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 like, let me restate that. I think you do need to go through individually because there are certain things that you won't fund, and you need to cut those before you make blanket cuts like Common Vision or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what Scott was going on is that when it comes to simply confirming if it's a GBM, that can be done by leadership. And at this time should be used to go through the individual clubs where we need to ask questions on either stuff in purple, ECSVs, that kind of stuff, but not looking through whether or not they're a GBM because that can be done. Like I'm putting up that event right now so that all the other events that are in purple that might list as GBMs, I can have a list of those. So after I move to end discussion, I would prefer if motion continues in the term of looking through events that questions were had about, what we really do need to all look into that application and confirm, what are they asking? For example, this would be like the gray ones, questions like Philosophers Anonymous, pre-pharmacy, which would be numbers 19, 21, and 22 on the sheet. Like things where we have questions about the application itself, not just a confirmation. Because if it comes to that, I can create a report, Scott, Zane, Justin, and I can all meet up and crank through those, then we have 4 sets of eyes, make sure everything's good, but I don't want to use 30 to 45 minutes at a time where we all have together, which is valuable, just confirmation stuff that 2 of us could do on our own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds fair. I mean, so would you like us to go through those, the gray and
Yes.
red ones, or no, gray and blue ones? And we all just look at it while you do your
Yeah, I'm currently creating the report right now. Also, anytime you want to yield the chair over, that'd be great.
I also don't know what's been voted on already, so if we're in the middle of something, somebody does know everything that's been voted on, should finish up with what's being done, I think. Because people are just making motions and I have no time to look over what I'm being asked to vote on.
Well,
So,
everyone was just making motions. It was just because they saw the yes to the GBM. It wasn't a super controversial
Yeah, it would be the
Both.
same as,
No problem.
it would be the same as leadership going through and looking at it without us going through and looking at it.
At this point, I think you've also voted on struck all of them too, sorry. So we could do,
what are the last 2 ones?
315 and 288.
Which I just looked at both of them. I'd like to move to strike both of them once we complete the discussion. They're both confirmed.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I can't say that.
All in favor? All opposed? I yield the chair back to you.
With that being said, I'd like to move to strike 315 and 288, seeing as both are listed as general body meetings. All in favor, please raise your What's everyone? Alright, with that being said, I'd like to move forward, heading back to the top to start looking at events. The first organization is Catholic Retrievers with 4 of them. Let's start by looking at 181. The main issues or question indicated is that it's looks like it's looking for more off-campus than on-campus students. Also, considering that they only have 5 quote-unquote on-campus students, the maximum they can get is less. Nancy, go ahead.
If you go to the notes, I made a note on this one. Also received an email that can, I guess, forward, as if I didn't forward it. That during saying that you mistakenly put the number for, non-undergrads and the undergrad, and vice versa.
Alright, that makes sense.
In case I didn't make a note on every single application that you submitted. But I can also forward that to you.
Alright, any objections to accepting?
Which event is this?
These are for essentially all of the applications that have been submitted for app retreat.
Just to clarify, not all of them are the same, so some are asking for, like, the numbers of on-campus versus off-campus are, but not all of them are asking for food, some are asking for supplies.
I replied to them as I did.
Alright, so is everyone okay with switching the numbers as indicated by Nithya? 40 for on-campus students, 5 for off-campus. And the numbers just accordingly allow for the 12 months they've requested to technically receive. At least by $12 per month. Are there any other questions concerning Easter dinner? Or is it-
Also, just to make sure, in case anyone asks this later on, the email that he sent was sent to me on October 16th.
October 16th, 2 days before the budget deadline. Are there any objections to considering this organization for funding, or this event for funding? No. Hearing no objections, let's move on to Catholic Mass.
Sarah?
Yes, go.
So are we gonna do some, like, the 3-round thing again?
Sort of. This would be our round 2, so to speak. Round 1 was getting rid of any clerical errors that we had in terms of what we could and couldn't fund, but we've already basically done that with the cuts and pathways. So everything that's in green, which is the cuts required, we won't be putting that to a vote simply because we have to make those cuts regardless of whether you guys vote to or not, because that's our budgetary statutes that we can't overlook. So that would have been our quote-unquote round 1 is when we were looking through that. The round 2 is looking through things that we're not sure about, which would be all the ones in blue and gray. And then after that, this is basically, once this is done, we'll have all the excess costs shaved off, and then we'll look at what blanket cuts we have to make to events.
Okay.
But according to Tori, if we cut down on the food to $12 per head and cut down on events to $33 per head, that shaves about 30 to 35 grand off, meaning that we'll only have to do another cut of around 30 grand to reach our limit. And that's assuming that we don't decide to overspend by a bit as well. So we're looking pretty good in terms of that. But yeah, the blue ones, these are ones that we have questions on. This is where we could potentially shave the fat. So I guess this would be round 2.
Okay.
How was CBC out?
Good.
Sorry, Mr. Speech. All right, looking at FBBR 81, which is the Catholic Mass, asking for mass equipment. This is similar to the request that they had for last semester, but we blanket denied that based on the equipment. Same thing we did for rock climbing. We can't track it, and there's no place for them to store it on campus, quote unquote. Rationale might be more difficult. This one with the existence of the IFC, but Zane, go ahead.
Nithya, did Jared just are you their liaison for Catholic Retrievers? Okay. So specifically on Nithya's source, we have like different varieties of candles. I mean, they're all fake candles, but I don't know if that's, because I know one of their supplies requested is candles. So I don't know if that could be an option. Trying to at least give them that, and then if they can find the crosses, they'll so I can make a note of it, but just I can
for, this request is only for discussion class and alter bells, that we can reuse in weekly math, so I don't think they're asking.
Oh, I just read that in the top.
I think like that, yeah, I
Oh,
know,
there-
but
that's
when they go
different.
down, they're saying that this request is only for that,
That would be one.
so,
Sure. Okay.
yeah. But,
True, yeah.
I mean, we decided last semester that we wouldn't, I would vote the same way, most likely.
So, motion to strike FDR 81, because it's in storage space and top full present.
Alright, are there any objections?
Well, where is the one?
IT. So if you, so when we do the any objection section, if you have an objection, just say that you object to it, and then we'll immediately move this into discussion of the debate issue. So if there's like something that, you know, the motion goes through and you would like to talk about it for a little bit, just object to that, then we'll go into a discussion period. But are there any objections for striking request 81, which is the mass equipment request?
I guess, I mean, I don't have an objection to it, I just wanna make a note, like, what, in terms of like equipment, like what kind of, are we going with the storage reasoning? Because I don't think we should go with like quote unquote equipment policies, it's like none of this stuff technically falls under equipment.
I object.
I mean, it's not, it's not really, I guess, object.
You can object now and still go from there. It's just, are there any objections to a general consent? If you have discussion topics or issues, then you object to us completing this request.
I mean, yeah, sure, object to.
All right, now in discussion. Because you can't ask questions once the motion's already been laid out.
I learned that the hard way last meeting, I was shut down,
How about those Roberts rules? All right.
Well, so yeah, I just wanna know what, kind of the board's consensus is on the policy that we're gonna use. I guess kinda like an update, like, one of the things we talked about last semester with like SABSC was in terms of equipment, like, they're in terms of like auditing, like, they're only concerned about like big things that the state would be concerned about, so I just wanna know like what the rationale that we would like to agree on as a board in terms of like this type of equipment. Like, is it gonna be storage, is it gonna be like, is that the main one that people?
So I think for storage, even though like if the state comes in for an audit, they might only really be caring about the big electronics, we should still treat everything else with the same level. And granted, you know, maybe not ping pong balls, but an $800 cross might still be something that they'd be like, what happened to this? Especially because of the nature of it's a religious item. So personally, I'm more inclined on just the general storage on campus. Like, can it be tracked? Is it going to get a fancy sticker? Can the university pull up its location at any time that it wants, regardless of the student input? And the student input would basically be like, it's not staying at someone's house. The state could come here and say, where's this item? And the university could say, it's right here, here's the proof. And since we can't do that with this, unlike the items in source where we can do that or stuff like that, that's why I'm opposed to it. If that makes sense.
I have a question.
Go
Are
ahead.
you still following the precedent that you'll only find one-off items? Like one-use items?
I believe so, yes. So that would be like theater props or costumes and stuff like that, items that will only be used once and then disposed of. Typically the board has funded.
But even though.
The only issue with, one second, the only issue with like the items that would be used over and over again is, can we keep track of them? But if they're just one-off, typically the board has voted to fund them. Except for theaters like costumes, stuff like that. Justin and Scott.
I mean, I thought also part of our rationale is like, when we get funding for the cross for fall semesters, because like it's more for use of like general body meetings type stuff, like equipment for general body meetings. Like, this is apparently supposed to be used like for weekly events for like people who are part of the club. So I pretty sure like that also will be more attention as well.
Scott?
Yeah, it's just simpler than that. I don't think we need to spend $800 on a weekly meeting.
Any other discussion points? Alright, with that being said, I'd like to move previous questions to the debate. Alright, 190 or 179 for Catholic Retrievers. They're giving out rosaries. They say 5 UMBC, 20 non. I'm assuming that this is another issue with the accidental person. Rosaries are bead chains with a cross at the end, typically used in terms of prayer. The amount of prayers you do and the type of prayers you do are dependent on the kind of beads and spacing in between. It's a religious item. If I remember that correctly from my one time PE class. I'll do the church general on. Jigger is the person.
What's their cost?
179.
179.
There's also no proof of what the cost of them.
Alright.
So I think that just a blanket statement moving forward might be something you wanna take into consideration if you wanna like approve things that don't have a proof of cost with them.
So we already don't approve anything through Sahas as a proof of cost. Are there any objections to carrying that policy over when it comes to the budgetary system as well? Wait, I have objections. Never mind, I retract my motion.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, not bad.
Wait, so does that mean we enter discussion period for your own motion?
No, because I withdrew my motion. I objected and withdrew my motion. The objection leading to immediate discussion only occurs when I ask if there are any objections after a motion has been sustained. It's in our proper results. Scott, go ahead.
So it seems like it's giveaways, because it says we distribute to each person and teach everyone. So maybe because of that.
Ryan, Elise, and Justin.
Can you tell us why we can't just blanket reject this?
We can.
I mean, like, what was your objection?
No. It was to the bringing over. So in Sahas, we don't fund anything without proof of cost for how much each item is. So I made an original motion to carry that over to the budgetary system. Then realized that the only reason why we created a budgetary system was that we would not have to look over individual items, and thus retracted my motion.
I was also gonna say like distributing and like giving away, like the same thing.
Yeah. I agree. Justin?
I mean, would they be allowed to make this request to the house if they like contribute like proof of like purchase or whatever?
They could if it said UMBC Catholic Retrievers or UMBC on it, but I don't know if you can do that to a rosary. So it's a great question. Scott, go ahead.
So to counter my own point, it does seem like something they're using during the event. So I guess it's fine.
Alright, is there a motion regarding this request? Or would you guys like to have a discussion on it?
I mean, the discussion.
Alright, we're now in discussion. So whatever we decide here is probably also gonna need a blanket for any other requests that come in like this, so this will be our precedent that we set. And unlike last one, so I hope that we can keep to that. So yeah, this, as pointed out already, it looks like it's just giving away the rosaries, but I think the event's going to be teaching people how to use them. So I think it makes it slightly different because it's not just a request for supplies. Because they're like, here, we're gonna teach people how to use this item, and because that we'd like to buy the item to show them how to use it, and I'm assuming they might be able to take it home again afterwards. But it also seems like the item is integral to the actual event, which is the teaching of how to use it, similar to how we did for UMBC, where we fund their stuff because they need that to show people how to teach and how to cook. So personally, I'm okay with funding this one, but I'd like to hear other thoughts. Scott?
So it's a weird in between because it's like, yeah, we're using it during the event, but it says, does your budget include merchandise and giveaways? And it also says yes. So it falls under both categories. It's giveaways and also supplies being used during the event.
I think if
So yeah, I think it probably is determined by what we think the primary purpose is.
yeah. So the precedent that the board has typically followed in the past for an item is what is the primary purpose of this? And if the primary purpose of the item is to serve as a merchandise or giveaway type of item, but there have been items where the primary purpose has been like a decoration item or something used by that they just happen to give away at the end, and we have traditionally been okay with that, but Elise and then Justin, I believe. Or Ilsa and then Justin, my apologies. No, nothing? I thought you both had hands up. Am I tripping?
I'm still trying to think.
I need you earlier than I thought I did.
I mean, I guess just the policy of also treating items as one-off, like if that's what we're going to assume for different items. And then obviously if we're under the assumption of that, then because we treat it as one-off, we don't really, not that we don't care what happens afterwards, but we just assume it's disposed of, so it is what it is. So like, we should treat that as fine.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Nice. Yeah. Scott?
I disagree with that because it says it's a giveaway, so. It's not like it's being disposed of, it's being given away, we know that.
I mean, yeah, but if we're assuming that, I mean, it's the same when we did like props and costumes, like, yeah, it's for the one event, so we assume that it's gonna be used for that event, but we don't in fact, they're not gonna throw away the costume. So, I mean, I would assume they put the giveaway because they intended to give them away afterwards instead of throwing away a perfectly good item, so, I think it's just part of, if we're gonna assume, if we're gonna use the one, time usage, then that's just an assumption that you have to, make one time use of it, anything outside of that is not there.
Justin?
I mean, so I do think this is like a tricky area where it's like sort of a giveaway, but it's like, it's pretty central to the event. I would vote for now, like, to just like consider them for fun, doesn't mean we have to, but like, at least like give them like a chance to like maybe look over it, and maybe like the ways on like if they can like ask for like, what's the proof of cause? Someone could just arrest you.
This on Jared Richard, this thing.
Susan?
No.
Can you part of the club?
Yeah, but the treasurer and the president are both named Jared.
It's Jared and Jaron. Michael, what's Justin?
I was just gonna say, move to consider this in the on-campus spot. I think there's been a lot of justification of why, this is unique in perspective and in the interest of people in heaven. Yeah. But,
Scott?
To respond to something Justin said, we do not need proof of cost for any of the things in this. The whole point of the budget system is that we're giving them a set amount of money for whatever they're asking for. So that's just for Sahas. You don't have to ask them for the proof of cost for the racers. So move to end discussion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please raise your hands now. All opposed? Motion carries. And we will be considering 179.
Move to take a short break to distribute the food. I have a second.
Got a second? All in favor, please raise your hands now.
Like, we did eat and.
We're
yeah.
hungry, bro.
Yeah, but it's a Democrat vote. If people want to keep working, then give it an option. All in favor of taking a quick break right now, please raise your hand. All opposed?
We can't like, distribute it, then money just work on, just give it.
That's what I was going
Okay, at
to
least we're not majority.
Scott, you were voting for a break. That was going to be me calling a recess, what you're asking.
No, just to distribute the food.
I'll distribute the food.
Not to eat the food.
Oh my god. All right. I deny the motion. The chair will refuse to hear the motion. I'd like to move on to 180, which is Fat Tuesday. Food for the event. I think the issue is that there's only 5, but I'm assuming this is another change that they will bring forward.
Yeah, so this would be similar to 181 with the Easter dinner. It was just that they had 5 UMBC students and 40 non, but as stated earlier. That was incorrect.
Alright, so are there any objections to considering this with the on-campus fund?
Sorry?
Are there any objections to considering request 180 with the on-campus fund?
No,
It's just not
Alright. Hearing no objections, we're going to be accepting 180 to the on-campus fund. Up next is 275, which is astronomy, which is their mid-semester debate. It seems like a closed GBM according to
please go through it, like, it was just my personal opinions.
Yeah, so I'm just
So-
the general, but if you guys go ahead and open it up and start looking through that, so it appears, or it seemed like it was like a closed event or like a GBA type and they're requesting food for that. So, how do you guys currently feel about that?
We're just looking at 179.
Well, they're just contacting me.
We're on 181.
We're on 275. 275 is strong movement, so that's really good.
Are you still sharing? Second, you still, is the couch open for discussing?
If you got your emotion on.
Okay, cool.
In case anyone's curious, you've already cut $5,000.
So while you guys are looking through these, I did a question, and then after some time looking through it, I'll wait if there's a motion to strike it or exit it without just follow through that, if I do a discussion. But you guys make motions. I'm not gonna put you guys on the time limit, so to speak. So once someone makes a motion, we'll consider it then, but I wanna make sure everyone has enough time to look through all the requests as well, or look through the request in its entirety before we do stuff regarding it.
Are they going to advertise for this?
Yeah, it says my UMBC event on Facebook. And it says no to GBA. So
So I can give some like clarification of why I considered, why I had questions. It said that they hosted a debate relating to what they've learned about in the semester so far. So since it seemed like it was like a build up on the whole semester, it kind of seemed like it was more geared towards their general body. But that was just my own personal opinion, so take that in mind.
I can see that because in the takeaways for the event, it says it's a fun event that allows members to put their knowledge to the test for their public speaking skills.
Just vote.
If it was like open, like if it was like, even if the members were debating, if it was open to the public to like see the debate, would that, is it just that it's most likely not going to be?
I interpret it kind of as like food for a general body meeting that's a little more fun than normal. But that's, like I said, my interpretation, and I don't vote here, so.
How are you guys feeling about this? Would you like to open discussion on it, or do you think you're already vote? Right.
Move to discussion.
Motion first.
Sorry.
Motion first.
Ryan motion first.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion to strike. Is there a second?
Can you double us?
I don't know, I've never seen it.
No, whichever one's first.
Hearing no seconds, the motion is rejected. The second motion on the floor is for discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a second. We are now in discussion.
I guess as I move to discussion, I will have to agree on or starting this. I feel many different types of ways about this. I see a potential issue. They asked when food would be served. They said that the food would be served for the purpose of promoting attendance, which I guess to me almost gives it a giveaway perspective, if not recruitment perspective. I don't know if that's stretching it, but that's what I felt on it. However, I do feel the event has some merit to it, and kind of, but I guess the only thing you're requesting is food, correct? So we'll only be short of food. So yeah, I can totally understand why you would say it was a GPM, and I don't have a problem striking a board.
Yeah, I understand, but I feel like it's kind of different in a way because it's like a semesterly event, so it's not just like something that happens every week, but like, even though it could be like an accumulation of like members, it's still gonna be like posted on Facebook and my UMBC, so like people who aren't in astronomy club can still come and show up. UMBC.
Justin, Michael.
I mean,
Okay, yeah.
so like, given like the key takeaway there for members, but also like the estimated attendance, I remember this, like 30 people is like the amount they asked for like shirts and like as well as the meetings that we thought were GPMs for this semester that we like sort of gave money for. It's like, there's a consistent number of attendance and there seems to be like a consistent number of members. I don't see them like trying to really expand beyond that. If it's like 30 people for 30 shirts, 30 people for this event, 30 people for the events that they're holding the special guest speakers for this fall, it's like, it just seems to be like catering to them. That there's a consistent like certain level of attendance they expect.
Yeah, so okay, so I'm gonna just start talking. I'm hopping all over the place today because for some reason I'm all over the place. But although I said a couple minutes ago I felt like it was a GPM, I'm gonna have to slightly retract that. Just for the fact is I'm looking at the timing of the event. It is from 9 to 10 o'clock, and I don't believe that's a typical timetable with GPMs. So in that respect, I would also possibly consider this to be an event. I don't think it's as clear cut as I initially thought, just because of the timing of the event. So.
Okay, well, I had actually shown interest in astronomy club, and that is when their general body meetings are from 9 to 10 p.m. because they're up in the observatory, and on my UMBC, their fall debate meeting is also listed as a general body meeting.
So, other thoughts and discussions?
Did everyone hear that?
Did everyone?
I heard it.
I'll go ahead and repeat. You guys can get it.
Okay, so he brought up the fact that he thinks that from 9 to 10 is not a normal time for a general body meeting, but I personally shown interest in the astronomy club, and 9 to 10 is their general body meeting time. And I also went to my UMBC, and their fall debate is also listed as a general body meeting. So I would assume that works for the semester spring.
Motion to strike
We're
FDR.
losing a discussion. What are you doing?
Any discussion?
I said.
He's still learning.
Alright, all in favor of any discussion, please raise your hand now. All opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to strike FDR 275.
Second.
Alright, are there any objections? Oh wait, no, we have to do a vote because we did discussion. All in favor of striking, please raise your hand now. All opposed? Alright, the motion carries. Striking the session debate. Next, oh god, apologies, terrible. Up next is going to be, we'll be considering 280, 229, and 279 all at the same time, which is Meet the Prof Night. So according to Tori, it appears to be a recruitment or only comp sci students type of event. Looks like one of those requesting funding for the so if you could take a look at 279, will probably be our baseline for this one.
They pretty much copy pasted as description, so pretty much just look up one. Oh.
I have to make a phone call. I yield the chair to Justin. Thank you.
What are we doing?
We're looking at
Two.
279.
279 comp sci.
So,
Make a point or something. I feel like if we're going to like eat, then we should take a break. But if not, then like I don't know how good like working I mean, I think we should either go into recess to eat and like take a break, or we should just get through to like another like half hour so we can work done. Because I think like this in terms of the flow of this meeting tonight's been a little all over the place. So I just want to kind of stick to a flow. So
A motion for that one's rejected, so let's keep working.
okay.
So 279, it does seem kind of narrowly tailored to like the comp sci department, which was said, but I don't think that we should like categorically deny like events because they're for an area of study.
They're also asking for quarter cards and flyers too, so
Yeah.
like I said, I very briefly went through 300 requests, so that's why I said still need to come through.
And 280, 229, and 279 are all the same. So I think that we should vote on them as a group as well.
Thanks, Dave. Michael?
I would just like to make the point though that when they were asked about whether food would be served at their event, they said many members will not attend their meetings during free hour because that's the only time they can get lunch. So to me, that kind of indicates, in my opinion, it's similar to a GBM, just from my perspective.
Are there no, Scott?
So you think it's like a GBM just with a speaker?
Correct.
Okay, I see that. I'd strike them. I agree.
I mean, so you could consider they're asking for common vision and like food / dining wear. So you could consider like keeping the common vision if you wanted to.
But typically speaking, if we were not to fund it on the basis of it's a GBM, we wouldn't fund anything just because we don't fund GBMs at all. So I think a good question here is how does the rest of the board feel in terms of whether this is a GBM or not? Do you feel like there is conclusive evidence that this would be considered a GBM or feel otherwise?
Ilsa?
I would be, I would consider it more like a GBM, because I think it is, sort of restricted in nature, just simply because, like, meeting the professors of the computer science department, that seems very much, actually, I think that's a dangerous road to go on. Let me think about it. Yeah, I wasn't raising my hand, so I don't know.
Lydia?
I would consider it because I feel like for the GBM, I don't really see, I guess necessarily like boards, putting enough order cards for every GBM they have. And I don't think meeting a comp sci professor necessarily has to be for people who are comp sci majors. Because if you just want to see what a certain field is like, then
Elise, Ryan, do you guys have any thoughts?
And like the other information, so is there meetings like every week? Like GBMs, are they like weekly? Do you even know?
we could check the date and time of each of those. So is someone on someone look at 229 and someone look at 280.
I'll look at 229.
Looking at 280.
Because it says like the event happens 3 times per semester, so like that would mean like if this is considered like a GBM, that means it'd be a GBM like once a month.
So for 280, the time is pretty much the same, except it's extended out an additional 10 minutes. So instead of 12 o'clock to 12 it's 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
Scott?
I think from that it's pretty clear it's a GBM. I would strike 280, 229, 279.
motion and
Can I
discussion.
just, can I have a second?
Oh.
We're just checking to see if the. No, it's not second. Never mind, continue.
Move to end discussion.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? Alright, discussion's ended.
Move to strike 280, 229, 279.
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? This motion passes. Alright, next up is Student Association?
It's.
I'm not. Yeah, so I don't know. I know.
Like, I don't know, so that's why. Yeah, I know.
So, communication knowledge.
Okay, second.
I should come up with three.
You taking the number?
Share what number we have?
If the number's not
Seven.
loaded
Student
on that page, it
Association
doesn't
was the next
register it. So if I just read or
Seven.
it doesn't register.
Correct.
Wait, it's a 17? I hate my. Oh my god. Wait. Oh.
So Scott?
So just the takeaways from the event, and it's kind of obvious it's a GBN, also an recruitment event. So I don't think we need discussion. Move to strike 70.
Second.
Are there any objections to this motion? Seeing no objections, motion passes.
Next one,
Free pharmacy, 89.
that's correct. Or the ones that we-
That's great.
No, we're doing the re-entry.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we are on 89.
Yeah, it's blue and red.
Also, one to consider, ESA should also be like in blue too, not just green, because it appears to be a philanthropy, and I didn't know like what your precedent was gonna be for funding philanthropy things. So 92, sorry, I didn't say the number.
Oh, if it's in green, doesn't that mean we automatically have to cut?
Yeah, so you have to make cuts to it regardless, but I wasn't sure what your precedent, for this semester was on funding philanthropy things, so like charity events, because ESA awareness is a charity event. So regardless, it's over what you can fund based on the per head, but that might be like a later conversation, doesn't need to be now, but I'm gonna make something blue in there also, just so
Oh,
you can come back to it if you want.
So for 70, oh, yeah.
Hmm?
No, my
They
no.
probably do that.
we're looking at a 89 right now.
Okay.
Cool.
Can you all speak up a little bit louder when you're sharing some of your opinions?
What is ACCO?
This is apartment community board? This also seems, but it says members can sit down and ask questions. I would say that it would probably be closer to GPM. Just.
Yes.
So I'm very confused because it says $100 for food and drink. We're not gonna have food and drink, and we're also gonna have giveaways.
Yeah, that's why I put this one on here. I read it and was like, this is not my problem, it's the board's problem.
confusion, or we could ask them to come in, but.
Wait.
See that? It also just is like 10, it says 10 members, so it seems like kind of a GDM as well.
Michael and Nikia.
So I don't know generally how the board feels about this, but I think a lot of the issues in the budget showed that the organization didn't spend, I think, a great deal of time planning for this event. And part of the job part of the new budgeting system was showing that, they went through the pre-planned events and, took a lot of time to go through and try to make sure everything's in order. So based on that, I would be against funding this event just because of the fact that there seems to be a lot of confusion and disorganization, and I would be reluctant to fund an event that might be unsuccessful due to the chaotic nature of the budget. So I would strike.
Nikia was next, and Zane.
Well, it wasn't a motion, it was a statement. Yeah.
Oh wait, that was.
No, it wasn't a motion, it was a statement. Sorry.
So, like Sarah was saying, they put yes for merchandise and giveaways, and it says that, will be small gift bags given to the speakers who, I believe, aren't students. Yeah? I don't know. I mean, like Michael was saying, it is confusing, but I'm saying whatever it's considered as, like, the information that they have provided is regarding merchandise and giveaways, and that is towards something that we're doing.
The giveaway would be to the pharmacist.
Yeah. But also, yeah, it's very confusing.
Zane.
Oh, yeah, I know people talked about the food, aspect, but it says like no, and then it says they didn't think if like refreshments qualified as a food vendor, but they're still requesting money. So I think the process, I think maybe this might have been a first time submission, I'm not sure, because it just seems like they're very confused on the submission, like they put in their request to be, so. Maybe, like, I mean, I would be in favor of striking, but maybe have a liaison, like, reach out, talk with the organization, who's ever his liaison for. Yeah, I mean, I just was suggesting in case they do have, a comment regarding the, kind of rationale aspect they would use, so.
Second. Move to strike. No? Oh yeah, you can. Not forgettable.
So all in favor of any discussion? All opposed? Motion passes.
Motion to strike 89.
Second.
All those in favor of striking FDR 89? All those opposed? This motion passes. Next up is Phil and Non, which I believe passes. Could you spell that? Oh no, yeah. Sorry. Just give me the number.
Yeah, it's 321 and 296.
321 and 296. So, wait, did these have different issues or did they both have the same issue?
It seemed like the same. So they have a room rental fee for $25, which we all kind of know that the only place room rental fees happen are the ballroom and the recital hall, and it's for a lecture hall. They're asking for supplies, but don't have anywhere listed like what supplies are. Yeah, so I would recommend everyone like take a look through there with a brush instead of a. Well, I went with a brush. You guys go through with the comb. That was the analogy I wanted to make, and it didn't happen right. So.
Do they meet with Brett Spears?
No.
Should they
Let
have?
me double check.
Do we check that?
Yeah, so Britt sent me a spreadsheet just to show who has and has not met with her as far as what's on the books. So some of the events too that ask for ECS never even reserved their room yet. So those wouldn't even be on Britt's radar because they're not in 25 line.
I just want to say real quick, Scott, for our philosophers behind this.
Thank you.
21 and 296.
I'm on 296, it says estimated UMBC undergrad attendance is 15,
see what it looks like your signature. Right, so, if they had ECS fees for smaller things, they were still supposed to meet with Brent, she couldn't give them an invoice. But there's also not like a room rental fee, for anything besides those two spaces.
Maybe we're just being proactive about potential room fees. Maybe it's something we just did research.
For room rentals, we only know there's two things that you have to pay a room rental fee for.
Is there
Do they
any ECS documentation at all?
They didn't upload any,
Okay.
I'm double checking the spreadsheet, excuse me, get myself a Mountain Dew, that Brent sent me. It's gonna be one of those nights. So anyway. It's no document.
It seems,
Scott, go ahead.
it seems like a legitimate event, but I would strike all of the ECS stuff if they didn't upload anything. Also make sure to send a message to make sure that their movie's within terms of service.
It would also fall under that question too, like if they didn't meet with Brett, how do you wanna?
Or just strike all ECS.
Alright, so that's Michael and Zane.
So I think it's only fair, since I brought up the last organization, lack of planning, it's only fair for me to try to bring it up here again. It seems to be not very well planned out, in terms of what they're requesting. I mean, if I scroll down a little, when they look, when they say, does this event exist in UMBC, at UMBC, they said no, because the event is taking place next semester, we've not quite determined the specifics of the event. So, I mean, for me, a large justification of not supporting events would be lack of planning, but, I'm curious to see, so that's like what
Zane and Scott.
You can look at Zane and say.
Yeah, because Zane has hand up prior after Michael, so I acknowledge that, so it's going to be Zane and then Scott, and then Abdul.
Oh, yeah, I just want to quickly reiterate, Tori's point in terms of like, we should make a decision based off this event in terms of organizations that have not met with Brit and therefore do not have documentation for, expected fees for their events, so.
Second that, I disagree with Michael. I think that part of the point of the new system is to allow for some like ambiguity and not have all the specifics figured out. That's why we don't ask for like documentation on items that they plan to buy, things like that. But I do agree in part because I think that they have to meet with Brit to have the easiest costs, to have those specified at least. And usually boards have to meet with Brit a certain amount of time in advance as well to be able to get those costs.
So before I resigned as president for Philosophers Anonymous, they were talking about this exactly, and to support your intuition, if it helps when you make your decision, they are quite lost at sea when it comes to this.
Yeah. Good to know. Alright, so as it stands, I think we do need to have that discussion on the ECS fees. The plan was to have it after we went through all this, but if you guys think it might be more appropriate to have that discussion now, I'm definitely willing to do so. Would you prefer to have that discussion before we make any votes on Philosophers Anonymous, or would you like to do a vote on Philosophers Anonymous and then start the discussion for ECS fees? Ryan?
I'd like to have the discussion on ECS fees first.
Alright. Any objections? Alright, let's move into discussion on ECS fees. So, when it comes to that, if you don't mind, I'll start by giving my stance, and then we can go around to people who would like to talk about that. Personally, I told Britt that I wasn't really going to make any exceptions, and I do plan to stick with that. While I feel bad for organizations that haven't got their stuff in, I know that Britt went above, beyond, and out of her way to make sure that clubs knew about the deadlines to sign up for stuff, including emails being sent out to orgs, things we put in the student sheet. She made more time available on her schedule to accommodate clubs and organizations under the request that they sign up before the 13th, and clubs still wait until the last minute. And considering that it took minimal effort to sign up for one of those appointment slots, She was willing to help through it. She put through a lot of effort to do that, and I think it's on clubs at this point. Because I can understand if it was just us putting this stuff out, but she put out a separate individual aside from us, more promoting, saying, hey, if you have an event, you need to meet with us. The way I currently stand, if they submitted an event request with ECS fees and other stuff, like they're still requesting for like food and decorations, I'm open to funding those food and decorations for those events since they did request for that. But if I don't see a documentation there saying that they met with event conference services, then I'm going to be striking all ECS fees from that request, no matter what they request. That's currently where I stand. I'm interested to see how you guys are. We'll go Michael, then Ilsa, then Justin, then Scott. So, kind of going.
So I would kind of like to throw it to Tori and then possibly get it back. I know you had a statement about you spoke to Britt and she had made some recommendations and statements. So I was just curious about what those were.
So I talked to Britt last week after looking through everything and just noticing that there were a lot of words that did not meet with her, that are larger scale events mixed in with medium, just a whole variety. Given that it's the first year of doing this, in my head I was trying to think of ways that there can be like a middle ground, if that makes sense. I don't want to implement any of my like ideas in this process, but I mainly just talked to Britt to see what she would be willing to do as far as like if you all decided to give them the chance to turn in documentation between now and next week. If that was something you were all willing to do, being like, hey, we noticed that you all didn't turn in ECS fees. Britt has open office hours currently. She's willing to use them to do that for this. She's not gonna, make any changes in her schedule. I wouldn't, because she's done a heck of a lot already. But she'd be willing to like meet with them to send over some documentation if that was something you all were willing to do. That wasn't something that to be fair with this, I don't really have any feels one way or the other what you all do. But it was just say, if you choose not to go completely like no, give them some space to make up for it, that's an option. Then again, and pretty much last semester was the only time they've never had to turn in any ECS proof for the fall budgets. So this isn't exactly something new, if that makes sense. So in the old system, they always had to turn in an ECS form. So it's not like having this documentation is something new and unusual. That's all my 2 cents.
You want to add to your sponsor with the floor?
I'll yield the floor. I'll read that.
Listen.
I was just gonna completely agree with what you said, Leah. Just to emphasize, when Scott and I met with her, like the week before or like the week the budgets were due, like we saw like the screenshots and like the statistics for the messages that she had sent, and like she was repeatedly sending messages to I think the student schedulers of each org, and they were like 480 views, and like so people were definitely like opening up these messages, and for whatever reason didn't choose to make an appointment in advance. And also to add what Tori said, like some of the organizations that were having problems with ECSVs were that were like clubs that I'm a liaison for, like these were definitely orgs that have put on big events before, and like cultural groups, and they were reaching out to me, and I don't think it was something that it was like a lack of knowledge or ignorance about the situation. It was just, procrastination. So I'm comfortable with striking ECSVs and then thinking about and having discussion about other requests that they made for the school, like Liam said.
Justin?
So my concern about like doing that would be like if we strike ECSVs but fund everything else, like if the club needs the ECSVs for the event to happen, then it's like we're kind of just throwing away money without the event ever taking place. And we might give them money for food, but without like audio visual and like all the other type of stuff, there's not much they can do in the if the event were to occur. Like they need to raise those funds on their own. I'm not sure if like all of them can do that.
Point taken. I have a response, but I'll wait until Scott and Lydia and Michael come.
So to summarize, they knew the deadline the entire time because I told them the treasurer training. ECS gave multiple reminders. ECS's reminders were deadline was a week before our budgets were due, because you had to process all the people who were coming in kind of last minute already. If we wait to get the numbers back from Grit for all the clubs, I think it would drastically delay us getting our budgets out on time, because we have to get them out by November 18th. And also what Justin said, if they don't have ECS, the event might not be able to happen. But I think that we should prioritize people who were proactive in whatever situation that we choose, or whatever thing we choose to do.
Anthea, then Michael.
I mean, I guess it depends on like how much of the food and other stuff you would fund. Because I know like just today, someone from the tutoring youth society came in, and so they filled out a reallocation request form, so they reallocated some of the money that we had funded for an event from like the common vision schools. They took like $30-$40 from that, and then they submitted that reallocation for like audiovisual use. So that is like, of course, that's dependent on like if the rest of the budget, the amount that's funded is more than what the actual fees end up being.
Right. I mean, I feel like I have to echo what Justin and Scott said about how they feel that if we fail to fund ECSBs, the event likely may not happen. And I do feel like that could be just a drastic waste of a lot of the money we have, due to the simple fact that, you know, although ECS typically isn't the largest, most expensive item organizations request, it is still a pretty hefty bill to try to foot. So I feel like in this situation, it would be more to the effect of, is it to be considered or is it to just completely deny? Because I feel if we go and categorically fund other line items of an org's budget, we may have several thousands of dollars that could have been utilized elsewhere for orgs who did properly complete the budget. So that's just my feeling of the situation.
Yeah, I have a comment there. Go ahead. So I echo that sentiment, because I definitely know that there are a lot of events in there with, and I have friends on those e-boards and events that I'd like to see happen that I know might not happen. The reason why I'm still inclined to fund for the events even without the ECS is because I don't know how much clubs have in their carryover accounts or how much they're willing to fundraise to get their stuff done. Any event that finance board funds 50% or under, they can charge UMBC students to help make up that difference. But my worry is that if the club did say have enough in their club carryover or have the capacity to fundraise to make up the missing ECS fees, if the board chose to deny the rest of the funding, they might again not be able to have the event. So it's giving clubs the benefit of doubt. Although granted, yes, a lot will most likely roll back, which still brings us to Tori's suggestion. I will field it off to Tori.
I had a question, just a general like rhetorical question. Would you allow them, if you did consider just food and decorations, to reallocate, or would that be like a reallocation you didn't allow? And secondly, just to rephrase what I meant as far as like allowing those groups to send in ECS fees, I wouldn't give them longer than next week, like and then by the start of next Tuesday's meeting, because you do have a schedule to follow and you have a deadline.
I'll take it until Friday.
Yep.
If I may respond to the first question, personally, I would allow, in the past, we've allowed them to reallocate among competitions to the same line items. I think that binds people out to think too, if they're willing to sacrifice some of their food or decorations for their event to help cover with some of those ECS fees, they're free to do the same. We've had orgs that came with reallocation requests this year who submitted the wrong ECS documentation because said, oh, we found out we need more for ECS fees, so we're going to cut our food to do so or cut our decorations to do so. I see no reason why, but
I just wasn't sure since it was like something you purposely weren't funding.
yeah, well, I think the reason why we didn't fund is because there's no documentation for it. That's not.
Like we're kind of in agreement that we should prioritize the people who got everything in. So maybe that we go through all the events that have everything in, see how much money that comes to, and give them till like some other date to get it in by, and then have like a less priority on funding events that didn't get in by the deadline.
I'm gonna have to disagree on that because of the fact that I feel we are already over budget, and the fact is if we give them time and we go and prioritize all the other budgets and there's no money left, it's kind of just a situation where clubs are upset that they still have to meet with Brit. They didn't really get their event any funding, so they'll kind of be disenfranchised about the waste of time. So I think it's an important decision to kind of make now and then proceed from there as necessary.
Other thoughts? The more I'm hearing about it, the more I'm being in favor of probably emailing all the organizations that didn't get their ECS fees in and basically telling them it's a first come, first served for Brit's open office hours, something along those lines. I saw a shaking of the head from Courtney.
No, sorry, I was reading something on here.
Basically, I'm sending an email for the organizations basically saying, hey, first come, first serve, open office hours. Maybe not Friday, since they probably won't receive the email until Wednesday, but maybe cutting it off on Monday. That way on Tuesday we can compile who got their documentation in. And again, that was brought up. Britt said that she's open to the idea, so we wouldn't just be like laying her document this on her. She wouldn't be making any additional appointment slots, of course. It'd just be the regular office hours.
Brit's
but-
open and also said to come talk for you two to go talk to her.
Understood. I'm more inclined to do that now that I'm hearing about kind of all of this stuff, but I still would like to hear other thoughts of things. Stop.
Just along those lines, I think it's important to communicate with Brit before we make any decision regarding her office.
Yeah. So yeah, if the board decides to do something tonight, then I will be at ECS at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I don't think you gotta get it that early.
Hypothetically, or in the morning to 11. And I'll be camping outside our office. I'll be like, hey, Britt, how you doing? But I'll inform her as soon as possible. That way we can get and have an email like prep to send out to her, so when she agrees. But the only reason why this idea came up in the first place was because Tori went and met with Britt, and Britt said that she would be open to that idea happening. And then we just sent an email confirming to her that yes, that is something we'd like to do. But it's ultimately your guys' decision on how I wish to proceed with this. Other discussion points or thoughts regarding ECS fees before we move into a vote? Michael.
So we moved into a vote about what's the vote going to be about?
First vote option would be to completely not fund events that didn't have their ECS form or consider funding for events that have an ECS form. Should we vote to consider funding for events that have an ECS form? The vote there was split to consider funding for events as is or to allow them to have a chance to meet with Brit to talk with. So the first vote's going to be, do we even want to consider any event that does not have an ECS form? If we do want to consider those events, the second one would be, do we want to give those folks a chance to submit their ECS forms through Brit's open office hours? Or for the clubs that may have already met with Brit and now have those forms but could not attach them to submission, or just to consider the events as is and not let them get a chance to put in their forms.
I remember at some meeting you shared with us like the numbers of how many clubs like needed to meet with Brit and didn't. Was it like 20?
I'll count again if you wanna continue discussing, and then I'll let you know when I have that number.
So I definitely remember that there are some organizations that may have been able to make meetings with Brit, but just after that 18th deadline. So I don't know how many of them might have just canceled those meetings or might have gone through and now have an ECS sheet that they just couldn't attach to the budget submission date had already passed. So because of that, that might also give them more opportunities. Because I'm kind of with Mike's one on like, I am worried that if we don't, or Michael just point where if we don't really fund the events fully, that they might not have and allow the roll back. And like that's definitely gotten to me now, which is why I'd like to give this opportunity personally. But at the same time, I think putting that strict deadline on them at this point to say, hey, here's your last and final chance, and it's not happening again. Maybe emphasizing first that this is through the kindness of the ECS office to really hammer home on that point.
It's 19 different orgs. A couple of them have multiple events. So LGBTQ Student Union has 2 that are on there. Dog Collar has 3. LGBTQ has 3, excuse me. And Retriever Music Society has 6.
This is it.
Sorry?
Those are it.
There's more than that, but those specific groups have multiple events.
Oh, alright.
There's 19 orgs total, and then those ones have multiple events.
I still don't think that we should consider ECS just because of all the opportunities that were given and then kind of ignored. So I'm still with Liam and Elsa's original position, just that we should not consider it. If we want to reallocate, then that's something that we could do, but we still had $60,000 for on-campus events that we have to cut down. But like I kind of think of it as like this was a class, and we had all this time to prepare for an assignment, and then you just like didn't do it, and now you want the teacher to like extend the deadline if you didn't do what you were supposed to.
Right.
Some teachers are fairly lenient. Just saying. I'd like to motion to end discussion.
Second, all in favor of any discussion, please raise your hands now. All opposed? Alright, motion carries. We're moving into a two-option vote. Option A will be to consider events that do not have an ECS form for funding, partial. Option B will be to not consider any event whatsoever that does not have an ECS form. Everyone clear on those options?
Say them one more time.
Alright, option A is to consider events for limited funding that don't have an ECS form, which would be either giving towards office hours or just funded food or stuff like that. Option B will be disavowing any event that does not have an ECS form attached to it. Just blanket not funding, period. So all in favor of option A? Oh, yes.
And the deadline for that will be Monday?
For option A. That depends on how we vote, if you guys do vote for option A.
We also can vote for it.
Yeah, so all in favor of option A, please raise your hand now.
Which is
All in favor of option A, which is to potentially partially fund some of the event. Please raise your hand now. Alright, and all in favor of option B, which is denying any event that has an ECS, that does not have an ECS form, period, please raise your hands now.
No, because so for option A, it was like we might fund their food.
Yes.
So we have an option.
All in favor of option A, please raise your hand now.
Raise those hands high.
All in favor of option B, please raise your hands now. Alright, we'll be going with option A. Now in option A, do we want to consider the requests, the new option A is, do you want to consider the request as is, which means only looking at the food, decorations, other stuff they put in, ignoring any ECS fees. And then option B would be allowing organizations to spend the next singular rest of this week to potentially meet with Bridge under open office hours to get an ECS form that we would receive by next Tuesday. So all in favor of option A, just considering what they have in their form now, please raise your hand. Alright, all in favor of option B, allowing organizations to meet and talk with Brit this week, please raise your hand now. Justin, where are you standing?
I don't think I'm in a position to vote since I said we should give any of these clubs money. So I think I have to abstain.
You can't abstain unless you have any personal connections with this. I'm going to ask you to
Makes
think
me mad. That's my only way I can abstain.
if you have a personal connection.
Wow, this is boring.
Situations.
All
Alright. I'll allow you to abstain, chair's discretion, because I will be voting for option B in this case, allowing clubs to meet with Brit. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So since you voted to allow clubs to meet with Brett, what if they don't?
It sucks, but
So are you gonna just cut them completely?
good question. Would you like to vote on that now or discussion on that?
So I felt the vote was done kind of backwards. I would have preferred if the vote was first for whether or not we were considering giving them the time to meet with Brit versus just considering before we did the decision to cut, because for me, the way we voted kind of put me in an awkward position where I now have to kind of insist that they meet with Brit in the hopes of, you know, not wasting a lot of money. Because what I would like to just say, if I may, is I feel that if we do open this up to have Brit go and meet with boards, there's going to be a slew of boards that are going to try to meet with her, and there will not necessarily be enough time for all boards to meet. And then we're going to have the same issue we had a couple weeks ago, or when budgets were due, that, you know, every board didn't meet, they're going to want to opportunity to meet and have their budget considered, and we're just not going to be able to be flexible in that deadline. So, just something I thought.
I think it's fair for you not to be flexible because this is you giving a second chance.
Right.
This
But
isn't something that's like promised. Like you promised this is our deadline, meet with Brit before it for initial budgets, but like this is you being very empathetic and giving grace.
I think there's,
But they don't have to sucks if they don't get it.
I mean, I think there's an empathy aspect to it, but I also think there was an issue. A lot of boards, you know, I was one of the liaisons who got the email at 11:59 saying that, you know, the schedule was booked and we can't meet with Brit what to do. So, I mean, I empathize with the fact that, you know, we're giving the empathy, but I think in the situation where some orgs would be advantaged to be able to still meet with her and others won't be, I see it as an issue that should be just decided as, you know, I don't know. Anyway.
So, well, we did already make a vote on it. I can see where you came from. In my mind, it was the main determination would be whether or not we wanted to consider these events at all. So I can kind of see where that is, but in order to talk, we have Ryan and Scott.
I'm definitely for the hard cutoff. If they don't get a meeting with Brit, then they should plan sooner to go to meet with her earlier in the year, and now we're giving them a second chance as there's the first day.
Scott? I don't know if Justin and Michael feel the same, but I also feel like my vote would have been different if it was backwards. So I would move to nullify the vote and also do it backwards.
But what is backwards?
So I think, so
Like, do
backwards
reverse.
would mean that we voted on whether or not we wanted to extend the deadline to meet with Brit versus cutting ECS fees straight ahead, and then voting to whether we don't want to fund organizations at all versus funding organizations for the events. And I think since the outcome of the vote completely changed based on the order of the vote, I think it should be considered to be revoted on.
Alright, so there's a motion on the floor to nullify the previous vote. All in favor, please raise your hand now.
I think it's time to go on.
All opposed?
Yeah,
I, Michael, Ilsa, Elise, and Justin voted yes for the first one.
Alright, then yeah, so alright, we'll be doing a revote. Option A, allowing clubs to meet with Brit. Option B, not. All in favor of option A, please raise your hand now. And all in favor of option B? Alright, clubs will no longer be allowed to meet with Brit. Now, votes on whether or not to, option A will be, hold up. Okay, option A will be to consider the requests as is. Option B is going to be completely deny any request that does not have an ECS form. Alright, option A, allowing the request to be seen as is. Please raise your hand now. Option B, blanket denying. Alright, we're going with option A.
I mean, change
No, I
the
did change the second vote.
So the only thing that changed was the fact that we're not gonna let clubs meet with Brit.
That's fair. That's true.
That's true.
So now we're back to the issue where we might be worried
No,
about.
it's fine, my vote was really changed and
Wait, did we decide if we're gonna let them reallocate for ECS fees?
I see no reason why we wouldn't.
we have been.
That's
Yeah,
for
like this
the
form.
reallocation people, not all of us, unless comes to us, but.
I mean, yeah, and for those, it liaisons have the individual authority on whether or not they choose to reallocate it. I know I most likely will allow them to, so if there's that dispute, then I'll come to the board for a precedent vote. Alright, is there objections? Let's move on.
A procedural point or clarification. So like when we're doing votes, like how is it relation though with like nullify votes or votes? Is it just like revoting?
It's a separate motion.
It's a separate motion.
To overturn the previous motion.
Yeah. So you can make a motion to overturn a previous vote once, but if it doesn't get like enough like support to do that, then you can't do it again. Because one of those one-off things where if everyone realizes, oh shoot, we might have made a mistake, you can vote to do that. But the motion that you can only do it once, there's a backup that way. Like if Scott didn't like how a vote turned out, you can just sit here for 30 minutes and say, I'd like to move to reconsider that vote. And everyone says no, and he's like, all right, well, I'd like to move to reconsider the vote.
So because we switched.
Yeah, so he motioned to nullify the vote based on a faulty logic within the vote. All right. Yes.
Is Common Vision counting CS?
No.
Okay. That was just for my own mental.
You're good. All right, so we're going to move off of this Philosophers Anonymous is moving in, correct? So there's $25 lecture hall, asking for supplies, but they don't say what the supplies are. They have ECS fees, but they don't have any proof. So
I have like $150 in AV and then a $25 thingamajig, room rental fee.
all right, I'd like to move to strike that room rent. Actually, you know what? I'd like to move to strike the whole thing. Do you object?
We will serve seats and like professional.
Well, yeah, so are there any objections? So the current motion is to strike Philosophers Anonymous' movie night. There's a second. Are there any objections? There's an objection. We are in discussion. We'll probe on it.
So, I still think that we should consider the rest of the event, even for events that have had commons fees denied. Especially like small events like this, audiovisual might come to less of what they predicted since they didn't have the actual numbers, or they could choose to have a smaller venue for their event. But I think like for small events like this, the event can still happen even without ECS.
All right, the reason why I was, yeah, go ahead.
Do we want to take into consideration just some of the like the personal information in regards to planning, like the comments that were made in that regard? Just because like if we are funding food, and then there was a concern that the event might not actually go through for whatever reason, then that food money would also then just come out.
Yeah, that's what you guys want.
I mean, no, I agree that we should look, like, consider, like, fees other than ECS. I'm saying for this particular instance because, there is a concern regarding whether or not the event will go through.
So the way I understood it is with the vote, we're still considering it with the food. I feel like it'd be weird for us to kind of go through an interest and be like, well, this one, I don't think this one's gonna be able to happen, so we're gonna cut this, and then go another one and be like, well, I think this one might be able to happen, so we don't cut that.
Yeah.
We did our vote, we have to stick with it. The reason why I was looking at blanket denying is because basically most of their costs were in ECS, if I remember the cost right. And then if we want to still, we could still consider the $40. But most of the request supplies there were like kind of completely unknown, which is why I wasn't kind of able to strike the whole thing. But I'm open to looking back at it. So, are there any discussion points? All right. Moving back into the original vote, all in favor of, wait, was there? Moving back into the original discussion point, all in favor of striking Philosophers Anonymous as movie night, please raise your hands now. campus was that they're asking for food supplies, they limit their numbers, and they also require students to be at a meeting once before they're able to do cooking.
That's just from previous knowledge that I have of the organization, from students talking to me about it, but I mean, UMBC has been a topic of debate for finance board for the past year and a half at this point. So that's why I put them on there, but based on a meeting that I had with some students, they said that if you wanna like participate in the cooking, you have to go to a meeting prior. It's not like you can just show up and participate.
Scott?
From being a part of the organization in the spring semester, I think all you had to do was like register that you were coming so they wouldn't buy more or less food than they need. But what is our definition of a GBM come to? Because this is basically a weekly recurring event, and that's what it's been considered as in the past. But as it is weekly and recurring, it could be considered a GBM, if depending on whatever our definition is going to be.
Last hands went up. If you don't mind, I'd like to table this so that we can enter a proper discussion on the definition of a GBM, and hopefully by the end of tonight, if it's okay with you guys, we can create a working definition of what a GBM is for the purposes of finance board going forward. Are there any objections to us entering a discussion and debating that tonight? All right, that being said, we're going to go ahead and table this discussion and open up discussion on what's a GBM. So who'd like to go first? There was a lot of hands went up, so we're just going to go around in order. Zane and then Brian.
So, I'm gonna let everybody else do their GBM thoughts. Mine was just, I think Tori had mentioned this earlier, or last Friday, because, an ethics goal came in at this point, but I think in terms of this club, and there's other clubs that are kind of like this, but sustainability, so like, the finance board is not a guaranteed, source of funding for any club when you become recognized, so.
We're right, just discuss on the definition of a GBM right now. We're table discussion on UMBC. I'll go back to discussing UMBC afterwards and the other things that entail into it, but right now we're working on creating a working definition of what a GBM is.
Sorry.
I have a document that I crafted on Friday that's kind of like the legislation that I introduced, and it's kind of a very basic definition on there right now.
Anyone can write that on the board?
Sure. You can also pull it up because it's in the drive.
Cool. That's where we're going. Where in the drive is it?
If you just search GBM, it's in the draft legislation.
A lot of things have GBM in that.
It's FDL 13 and then pound sign.
13?
Yeah, and then pound sign. So I figured it was going to be 130 something. And then do the pound sign.
Yeah, I'm looking for it on this keyboard.
Oh, it's the fourth one. There it is. It's down at the bottom as well.
Hereby being defined as the assembly of a UMBC undergraduate student organization for purposes of conducting business in accordance with the organization's founding document. Non-members are UMBC students that have not met the membership requirements of the organization. Non-members are neither afforded the opportunity to vote nor permitted to hold executive board positions.
So that's second, or yeah, the last two sentences are things that Courtney sent me about non-members. And that's just something that I kind of idealized. That's definitely something that needs to be reworked.
Is there any like official thing?
We don't have an official definition of GBMs.
Scott?
I'm reading it.
Alright. So I think we could take this as a working definition and work off of this in terms of making adjustments or changes that we deem are necessary to create a very good standard work that we can then disseminate to student organizations. That way this debate will never need to happen again. Brenda?
Can I make a suggestion about the definition?
Go ahead.
So I would add regular assembly, just because it happens frequently.
I'm gonna hop in with suggesting mode, if you don't mind.
You don't edit it directly, I'm not. I would also just add like regular workroom, or on on a regular basis or something.
As a regular recurring assembly of UMBC undergraduate, as a regular recurring assembly of the UMBC undergraduate organization for purposes of conducting business in accordance with that organization's, I'm just gonna say constitution, because all orgs have constitution. Any other?
I wasn't sure about conducting business either. I'm not sure if that's how you would consider the operation of a meeting, so.
What do you guys think about that? Michael?
So, personally, I think there's a lot of ambiguity in the that current definition of GBM, just in terms of conducting regular business is really up to the orgs. I mean, like, not the orgs, the board's interpretation of what the board does on a regular basis, if you kind of get what I'm trying to say. And I think with that definition, there's still not enough of a structure to kind of make a general statement between boards, between year to year, about what a GBM is and how to determine whether it is a GBM or not a GBM. And I'm not quite too sure. I mean, I make these suggestions, but I'm not quite too sure what's the best way to do that.
So one second. This is just kind of like the rundown. So if you have things that you think would be a good change to add in, or stuff you want moved, or things you want switched, just go ahead and slap them up. I'm going to ask that every rep give something during this, since general body meetings are a hot topic of debate around here a lot. And I think it's important that we create this standard definition. I want to make sure that every rep has a say, at the very least in agreement with this, so that when this legislation is introduced and passed, it is a full pass-through, that every member of the board is comfortable with it. Brian, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, what needs to be changed, or what needs to be added?
Well, to me, like, not really going and re-looking at UMBC's meetings, but kind of just referencing them in a situation. In my opinion, I think the best way for me to explain it would be to give an example. I think a GBM would be better stated as if they went and had a meeting during the week where they discuss the proper methods of cooking through via PowerPoint. And then maybe an event during the week would be something where they actually had the members come together and practice the methods they spoke about during the GBMs. I mean, that's not something, it's not at all about the best way to write it, but that's kind of my imagination of a GBM versus an event.
Alright, Scott.
So continuing on this example, that's exactly what happens. Earlier in the day, they meet to discuss the cooking techniques, what's being made, and then later in the day, they go and do it. But both are recurring weekly. One has been considered a GBM historically, and one just a weekly recurring event, basically, where you make the dish that you talked about in the GBM for the UMBC. But when I kind of think of a GBM, it's like you meet. It's not like catered or anything. It's just meeting to discuss current events pertaining to the club or whatnot, or like what you guys are planning to do, planning for an event, stuff like that. So I don't know how to tailor the definition.
Yeah, let me just throw those words into the definition and see how they work out.
Yeah. You can go ahead and just talk about what you'd like. I mean, it's your job.
I think Scott should. There's Scott's words. I would never be able to say them as good as Scott.
That's what I said.
You want me to take them?
That's what you asked.
I need to think it through with you guys. You have to help me think it over.
We'll just slap a change there. I think we could also add the stipulations. So since my UMBC is a thing that we're kind of really pushing for clubs to be using more, maybe something in there where they have to state when their general body meetings are on a regular basis or something like that. That way it's available information to the board of, is this event also occurring the day that you have your quote-unquote general body meetings, to make that distinction? I mean, it would be weird that our, like, I don't know if that falls into our budgetary policy, but if it was to be let, or something they just have to do. Kind of how we request for events like that location, just so we can see if any of them happen to match up. But that's a lot of onus on the board for the future, so.
What was your FDL called?
It's a 1-3 number sign, hashtag. Everyone can go ahead and hop on this document, actually. It'd be pretty useful just so that we can make changes, edits, and suggestions together.
Or I want to say something. Referring as something towards members of the organization. Geared towards. It's a better.
Advertised.
Like targeted?
Regular curriculum.
Oh.
It's okay with everyone. Once we get done with this work definition, we're gonna just go into a quick 10-minute recess. I think everyone needs it.
Alright, I've rewritten it, right? What do you think?
Wait, has for the purpose of members, like,
What is being discussed? Everybody's
has for the purpose of members of the organization to conduct. She put it down on after. Wait, hold on. I just don't like that, but like, whatever.
Just like the general things, it's regular, it's recurring. It's primarily for members of the organization to understand the regular going on at the club. I think those are the two major points that I think of when I think of GBM.
Should we like incorporate, cause a lot of people like, they don't wanna call them meeting general body meetings, cause they don't wanna admit that it's maybe catered towards, like, cause anyone could technically walk in and sit in a meeting, even if they can't vote, so should there be like a specific, sort of sentence, like clarifying that? Like, even if they are not private, it's just.
Well, it says for the purpose of members of the organization.
But it would still, like, things would still be considered GBM if non-members were present. You know what, like, yeah?
It's what the purpose is for. So like if somebody walks into a GBM, like.
As a non-member, it's,
They can.
okay, yeah.
But was it for them or to
Yeah.
expose non-members to
Got it, I got it.
whatever is going on?
Like that.
I think it's only just clarifying that like non-members are able to attend these meetings.
I would like combine that sentence with the, like, make it like, non-members are able to attend the meetings. However,
Did I not include that?
You did, non-members are able to attend
well,
meetings.
Ryan's like typing it in the blue.
Oh, okay, sorry.
basically, no, the however aspect, it's like already covered, it's this,
Oh,
I think, right? However, cannot, like, are not voting members, or, like, they can't hold executive board positions. I don't know if, like, that distinction needs to be made or something, but whatever.
So basically add in that they can also attend the organization's meeting.
I mean, with, like, that was what I was originally, saying, but I mean, Scott, I mean, I don't disagree with what Scott said, so
I feel like
I'm fine with
it's
leaving it up
implied that
to.
becoming a member is kind of an opt-in thing, you know?
We do general body meetings,
Like most people
maybe open up to the public, but are geared towards members of the organization.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah, so maybe-
that's important for everyone.
I'll write that.
Have you got APSO?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the discussion is around that. I just think that, the definition of it needs to be clear enough to people where, they're filling out forms and stuff like this. I just feel like it needs to be clear enough where people can say, yes, this is a general body meeting, no, it's not. And I think going forward in terms of general body meetings, we should just do it based off of this definition. You know, obviously looking at their answer, but yeah, based on this definition. Yeah, I think all the points have been made are valid to try to put the definition forward.
Do you think it's helpful to give an example of like what a non-member is? Like,
Um,
so for example, like graduate students are technically non-members of clubs, they're allowed to like go to meetings, participate, but they can't like quote unquote reap the benefits of like being an actual member, like holding exec positions, voting elections, the finance board funded in something for the group, the money can't be given on behalf of like that student. So like that could be like an example, because that language could maybe be confusing for people to interpret.
So like having a thing that says membership will include undergraduate students.
I don't think you need to define membership in this.
They should have membership definitions in the Constitution.
Yeah,
They should.
I think it could be membership as defined by like the organization, but like I don't think it's necessary for the definition of a general body meeting to define membership. Because every org has different standards outside of what non-members can be, if that makes sense.
So basically straightforward.
Wait, does this require joint legislation?
Nope.
This is a blending policy, so.
Legislature statutes.
What if we
In section 12 of the legislature statutes, I believe, it's a document subject to change by a 2/3 vote of the finance board. Scott?
what if we just have one clarifying thing that the finance board will only consider members who are undergraduate students?
I just don't know how like membership is relevant to general body meetings. Does that make sense? Like defining who can be a member.
Okay.
Cause I think if you leave it at like geared towards members, you could say like official members of the organization based on their constitution, but like I think you can state like non-members can be there too, but I don't think you need to define what members and non-members are for the sake of this definition.
Especially because it might vary depending on whether the organization's limited funding or not.
Exactly. Because like some of our limited funding orgs can't have grad students because they're not held in the same standards. So for example, like club sports, they can have, I mean, that's probably a bad example because you don't see any club sports come across your table, but like, yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? I know you like to use the X organization, but I would keep the same
Oh,
consistency
oops.
on, that's just a minor.
No, you're good. That doesn't need to be changed over. It's just, I essentially typed that.
No, that's totally understandable.
That just looks wrong. It just looks wrong.
So right.
It's so broken.
It's not organization.
It looks so wrong. It's so straight.
So could we say for geared towards members, you would have to insert like adjectives or constitutionally ordained members, like, along those lines. Is that what you meant?
Or like members via each organization's constitution.
Towards members as defined by each organization.
Yeah. There it is.
I'd say massacre that movie, though. I think it was already after we put it out.
Yeah.
Kind of wait for fear to come.
Horrible. So, are we in discussion right now?
Yeah, we're still in discussion. Okay, yeah, we're just discussion on the definition of general bylaw, you just happen to be using your document to say so. Sorry. Make a recess. Michael, go ahead.
So, my more general question is, do you feel that general items should have a specific, at least a minimum frequency, just out of curiosity?
No.
So I just think in terms of like time and like trying to use these meetings for like budgets, I think we should try to move out of discussion of like finance and whatnot. I think it's good to like discuss this and try to get a final definition, but I think like outside something could be constructed. Just need time just to think through budgets. So whether that means like tabling things that are pertaining to this, or if it just means like having a few more minutes of discussion and take the time vote on the legislation. Just comments.
Any other discussion points in regards to the definition of the GBM that we worked with for the rest of the budget season? All right. I'd like to move previous question and debate. All in favor, please raise your hand now. All opposed? All right. So is everyone okay, at least for the purposes of the budget season, using this as like our general definition for a GBM? And again, it can be fine-tuned and actually added to our budget sections later, but just for the purposes of looking at events, bearing in mind that UMBC is the next one that we're going to be looking at, that this is a decent definition for what a general body meeting is. Cool. All right then. Reopening debate. UMBC, they're requesting, basically this is the same line they requested for last semester as well, with each individual item being one day of the week. But as Scott said, it is an event that is occurring every single week. So
Move to take a 15-minute recess.
considering time available, is there a second?
Second. Wait.
Oh my.
She's requesting a 15-minute recess.
Okay, move to a 10-minute recess.
Okay.
All right, board will break for a 10-minute recess. Please reconvene at 8:10 p.m.
Okay, I don't know, I mean, people are gonna come back at 8:15 anyway.
Wait,
Why?
So how many people would you like vote not have?